Okay, we're good.
All right. So good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming to our second live Q&A event with Cannabis Control Board staff. My name is Bryn Hare. I'm the Executive Director of the Cannabis Control Board. I have with me tonight, again, Carrie Jaguar, our Director of Compliance and Enforcement, and Lauren Higby, our Deputy Director of Licensing, and Nellie Marvel, our Outreach and Education Manager. So I'd like to start out by thanking the CCB staff for being here tonight during the evening. So I'm just going to start out with some quick opening remarks, and then we will open it up for questions. Just like last time, if you came to the Q&A session last time, this event is like CCB staff are here tonight to answer your questions, answer the questions of people who are sort of actively engaged in the process, either licensees or people who are seeking a license from the Cannabis Control Board or thinking about getting a license from the Cannabis Control Board. The point is that we are here tonight to help people who are in the regulated community or coming into the regulated community to help you understand what it is that the CCB is requiring to be in compliance. So this is not the forum for comments or sort of feedback for the board, although I'm sure you all know that we are always happy to hear feedback and comments, and this appropriate place to submit those is through our public comment portal, which you can find on the website very easily. So please do submit your public comment that way. But again, tonight is really for a question and answer session. So I think the only other thing I'd like to say is that, as usual, there's always a lot going on at the CCB. So we are migrating, or we have migrated our product registration system from our sort of interim system, which was just a Microsoft form and an email system, which was quite laborious, I think, for our licensees and for our staff. So that has migrated to the licensing portal, which will make things a lot easier, I think, both for the regulated community and also for our staff. So Lauren is here and she will be able to help answer questions about that new system. Our inventory tracking system is still, we are still using an inventory or a intermediate kind of temporary system for inventory tracking, but we are getting closer to having our sort of final option for people to use to enter their inventory tracking information. And also at our last board meeting, we went over a draft of the hemp report that's due to the legislature in mid-January. And we also talked a little bit about what the path will be for people who are currently manufacturing hemp products. So we're also here to answer questions about that. One caveat to the hemp questions is that we have not started drafting our hemp rules yet. And that process probably will not begin until the end of January. So there will be, and that we mentioned this at the board meeting, and I'll just say it again now, there will be ample opportunity for public feedback during the rulemaking process. So we are just providing sort of early stage information for people who are processing hemp products. There's lots more to come in the hemp world. So I think I'll leave it there and open it up for questions. I don't think either Lauren or Carrie have opening remarks. If you do, please jump in. But if not, I'll just open it up for questions. So thanks for being here, everyone.
I think we'll handle this similarly to public comment, where if you've attended any of our board meetings, if you have a question, please raise your virtual hand. We'll call on you in the order that you raise them. At some point, we'll pause and turn to folks who have joined via the phone. So first up, we have Austin, who has raised his hand.
Hi, yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. My question's around product registration, and I believe there was a kind of technicality around submitting for, like, if you had pre-rolls and flower, and if that was all under the same harvest law. but they were kind of two separate products that could all be put in through the same product registration. Does the same thing sort of apply toward if you had trim from the same flower that you were looking to sell toward a manufacturer or such? And like, would you be able to use the same test results and consider it all part of the harvest lot without putting in a new product registration? That's my question.
So my understanding of this question is that, do you need a product registration for trim that you're selling to another licensee? And the answer is no, because the product registration is only for products that are going direct to retail.
Okay. All right, thanks.
Michelle.
Hi, thank you guys for having us as always. So my questions are about tracking, and I know that we'll be getting a new system soon. So my first question is for the transfer of cannabis form. I am a manufacturer. We make edibles and topicals mainly, and it lets me select an edible is what we are transferring. But I'm being told to put how many we're transferring in grams. And I just want to clarify what I'm supposed to put there. So if I did, let's say 100 packs of 10 5-milligram gummies, what grams would I put for that?
Hi, Michelle. Thanks. When we're talking grams, we're really interested in flower or pre-roll. We're tracking those the same way. But in this particular case, it would be like you've registered your product as a package of how many gummies?
10. So 10
10.
5-milligram gummies.
Yep. So that one product, you're going to tell us how many of those products you shipped. So it's a number instead of grams, and there should be a place you can skip where it's talking grams, because that's specific for flower, and answer the question number of products.
I don't see a number of products as an option. That's why I was so confused. So
Okay.
I have been putting 0 because
Yep.
I thought it was cannabis, but it just says harvest lot of number, and there's no option for like if I sent 100. So I've just been recording it, and I've got nice spreadsheets that are very detailed in case you guys ask us.
Yep.
But yeah.
Michelle, if you want to send me your spreadsheets, I'll upload those directly into the system.
Oh, that sounds lovely.
Oh. All right. Actually, I'll schedule a time where you and I can take this offline, because I want to look at the tracking for myself.
Okay. And then my next question is also about tracking, but it's for the manufacturer inventory tracking. It's for question 7 for the first process lot, specify the processed weight in grams. So, but then it also asked me later on, how many grams of extract did I use? What am I supposed to put there?
Mm-hmm. Answer the question that's appropriate for you.
Okay.
If you're using flour, answer the number of grams of flour that you used. If you're using extract that you got from somebody else, use that number there.
Wonderful. I don't like to leave
Yep.
things blank, so I wasn't
Yep.
sure.
No, they had to be designed that way where not every question is required.
Gotcha. Awesome. Well, then those are my 2 questions. Thank you so much. And then I will get with you soon, very soon, Carrie.
Yep. And if you just send that spreadsheet via email, I can plug in the numbers directly into the back end, and we'll
Awesome.
call that good. And I'll work through the spread. We've only got another 3 weeks, maybe a month with this interim solution, and the other one should be more intuitive.
Oh, that sounds great. You've just made my whole day.
Good.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Jessie Lynn.
Hello, happy holidays, everyone. I have got two hopefully quick questions. One is, with the THC as compared to hemp products, are distillate products allowed to be listed as full spectrum technically? And my second question is, if a cultivator were to fail for pesticides or anything, or have product returned to them by a retail, say, because they found mold by a consumer or an employee, is that information public knowledge or is that protected information, please? Thank you.
Jess, I'm sorry. What what was the first question? We'll take them one at a time.
Is distillate product
No.
allowed
Okay.
to be
Yep.
labeled full spectrum?
So in the next iteration of the hemp rule, the definition of full spectrum still means everything extracted from that plant. So like a distillate would not meet the definition of full spectrum.
Awesome. So for THC, it should be labeled accordingly. So distillate should not be listed as full spectrum, which is super supportive and helpful for consumers. So awesome. Thank you.
Correct. And then the other question?
The other one is, if a cultivator, was to fail for pesticides or have cannabis returned to them by a retailer because a consumer or employee found mold, is that information public knowledge or is that protected information for the cultivator?
If they've submitted it to the CCB as part of their product registration or directly uploaded their COAs as they're moving through our inventory tracking system, it would be public knowledge. If they voluntarily pull that product because of a bad result and it never made it to market, it wouldn't be public knowledge unless that information was submitted to the board.
Okay, I guess my kind of concern or question is there products that, not everyone can identify mold, and if it's already been pulled off the shelf, is there a way for someone to look back to still say, hey, I was kind of questioning that cannabis I smoked, but I don't really know what mold looks like? Would that, still be accessible to them?
So we would consider that adulterated product, but we're not, mold doesn't fall under the microbial tests that are required. So we're requiring human pathogens and aspergillus. And if the mold produced aspergillus, we would know. But if it was botrytis, we would not know.
And is there any recall process? Like if a retailer sold 25/8 and then realized some of it had mold on it, and stopped selling it, rightfully so, is there, a recall process, or is that just cannabis that's out there and we, hopefully educate people to know what mold looks like?
Yeah, so it's a young market, Jessalyn, and I think you've done a very good job educating people with your classes, and I think we still have a long way to go. We currently aren't requiring sort of forward notification. We're hoping that the quality issue takes care of itself, and if it doesn't, we'll have to do something about it.
Okay, thank you. Well, I would love to start spreading a little more information so people know what they're looking for, because as we know, sometimes mold happens, and I don't think people know what it looks like. So thank you.
We count on you, Jessalyn.
Thank you, and back at you guys.
Okay, there's no one currently with their hand raised, so I think we'll take a moment. Oh, the Mad Botanist just raised their hand.
Hello?
Yes,
Can
we
you
can
hear
hear
me?
you.
Okay, great. I just had a question about a product registration. I registered a product probably roughly over a month ago. Right before I registered it, I did just email the compliance, the labeling, just to make sure there wasn't an issue, and they said it was fine in the email. And then I found out I had to register it, so I did that right after. But anyway, I haven't ever received an email back about it. And in my account, when I log in, it shows no products, but the fee was taken. So I just didn't know if it was, going to update or what about that.
Yeah, I can take that one. I definitely have many product registrations on my radar. I bet we've reviewed your product registration. There is a considerable backlog. I think we've worked out over 60 to 65 product registrations each week. And so well done to the market, but also that's a lot for us to process. I think too, actually, when you speak of the time frame, Mr. Mad Botanist, if I can say that, that was when our Salesforce notification system was down. And so there is a blackout period where we have to resend notifications. And so you might be in that bubble. So I can go back and make sure that notification went through. I will say, just going through the submissions that we do have, I see the information you've submitted, so it did come through. And you won't necessarily, you'll get an email from this part of product registration, this interim solution through Salesforce, but you won't submit, you won't actually see the product registration until we do some data migration in your licensing portal. To give you some context there.
Okay, so I should be all set for now as far as that goes.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
Yep.
All right, and we have actually 2 Keiths in a row that have raised their hands. So Keith Rowe, you are up first.
Hello, CCB. How are you tonight?
Very good.
I have actually a few things, because I'm a medical patient and I'm more on the testing side right now. And I have something with Jessie Lynn, I believe is her name. I think, and you guys, if you went back to track and trace from seed to sale and you tagged every single plant, you would know where that mold came from all those plants. And from that cultivator, it would make it much easier to trace it back. And also, you guys should be giving a warning through the CCB website, because it's a health issue. And that comes under the Department of Health and Human Services, because if I smoke anything with mold in it, I'm going to be very sick.
Keith, I'm going to interrupt you just for a minute to remind you that the ground rules for this Q&A session are that we are taking questions. And so we are happy to hear your question, but for comment, please submit them through the public comment portal, just so that we save time for everybody, because we know there's lots of people with questions.
It's part of my question.
Okay.
My question is, with testing labs on this, are you guys going to start following the testing labs to start creating interstate commerce regulations with all the other districts that are in the area, being Massachusetts, Maine, Rhode Island, Connecticut? So if interstate commerce ever comes and products like they want to come to Vermont, say like Theory Wellness, that has several dispensaries in Maine and Massachusetts, can bring their products here, and all the testing labs are equally testing not on a standard level, and then giving that standard level to the federal government. So when it does that, we have a federal safety guidelines and not all this jargon and all this confusion of each jurisdiction's risk management, basically, for their testing labs. And does the state of Vermont, your CCB division, have its own testing lab for its own standard testings to compare with all the testing labs in Vermont that are licensed right now, to compare the data they're giving? Because it's easy to adjust THCA contents and other things. And I haven't seen anything on these things being on the testing labels. Is there anything for the cannabinoids and terpenes, any of the Delta 9s, any of THCO, any of the CBDVs or CBDAs or THCVs? And the calculation should be on the testing, on the packaging labels, for total THC content, total CBD content. And are you guys allowing to know about terpenes as well? That I'd like to know. And are you testing for class 1 and class 2 solvents in cannabis extracts, vaporizers, nasal sprays, and inhalers? And are you testing the manufacturer's machinery as well and the handling process? Because anytime anything's handled in the cannabis can cause a discrepancy and can cause bacteria. That bacteria can be anything from total yeast, mold, aspergillus, salmonella, Schengen toxin producing Escherichia coli, and total coliform testing and microbiota testing in as well. For suppositories and nasal sprays and inhalers. I'd like to know if you guys are doing any of that in the testing department. I know it's a lot. Sorry.
Keith, have you looked at the testing flow chart? There
It's
are
a lot of things,
requirements.
a lot of things
What's
aren't
that?
on there compared to other states. I'm more concerned with the future of what's coming down the road. And if you guys have your own standard lab that is proficiency and accredited, so you can double check all the other labs here. You have a base standard for you guys to check all the other labs. In Massachusetts, they have their own standard lab that checks all the other labs, like Pro Verde and all those. So they can compare, so there's no contrast between the testing. So I could go to like
So Keith,
one
I
of the
can
labs
answer
here.
that question.
I know it's deep. Sorry, but it's
I can-
deep. This is concerning to me and everybody else. It should be too. I'm sorry, but it is.
Keith, there's no need to apologize. I was just trying to answer one of your questions, which is that if you read the draft hemp report that's on our website, you'll see that one of our proposals to the legislature is to fund a state reference lab for the CCB to use for just the reasons that you're describing.
I have
So
a question though. Isn't
right
Carrie
now, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Isn't Carrie formerly from the state working in ag department? I understand the ag department has a testing lab and has had a testing lab for their hemp program. And are you guys going to be following Bill S-1699, the Hemp Access and Consumer Safety Act, and HR 841, Hemp and Derived CBD and Consumer Protection Act, and the Market Stability Act? Both of those are in Congress. And I can know that those things are coming up in January, where they're having a giant meeting. And they're going to have concerns about Delta 8 on the market right now. It's out there that the CBC is not regulating, because I can find it in any store in the state. Any store with a tobacco license has Delta 8 here. I've seen it. I'm concerned with these things, and these things need to be regulated. I'm sorry, but I know you guys are in the embassy.
You do not have to apologize. These are wonderful comments that the board would like to hear. This is just not the forum for your comments. As I mentioned at the outset, this is a Q&A session.
These are
for
questions.
people who
These are comments. These are questions, Bryn. These are
Keith,
questions.
You're not letting us answer your questions.
Go ahead.
Can you start
think-
from the beginning and just
No.
give us a question at a time? That would be helpful. Is one
There
question
was-
at a time.
There was one, Keith, that I heard, and a scenario comes to mind in terms of following up with any outliers in the testing results. Without getting into too many specifics, there have been some outliers or some things that don't fit in the test results that are submitted through product registration, and we have followed up directly with testing labs to, ask questions and pursue that result more, and in some instances have specimens retested to see if it's valid or if it's an outlier, or all those things you mentioned. So that work is happening, and part of the point of product registration too.
I'll make it easier for you guys. I will submit my questions to the public information forum, because it seems like I'm going to take up too much of your time. My other question is, are you guys going to hire somebody to go into the testing labs that understands the science of cannabis testing? That is a big question I have. Because
So Keith,
I don't know.
We already
all
have
of the other,
staff.
all of the other licensees have a process. The labs have a far different process. All other method validation and the analytical development work and their detection limit studies do come to the board as a data package and are reviewed before the labs are authorized to do any of the analysis that we ask them to do. So there's a certification program as well as a licensure program that happens for the labs that are in Vermont.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, next we have the second Keith, and there's no last name associated with this Keith, so just Keith.
All right, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, thanks. Hopefully these are easy questions, but on slide 10 of what you showed with the hemp slides last week, slide 10 actually said that hemp processors had to register by January 1st. And then I think you softened it up in a later slide and maybe you mentioned that that was not a requirement. It was just call it an opportunity if we wanted to register early. So how should we be interpreting that? Because slide 10 basically says you have to register by January 1st.
So Keith, that was a draft report,
Mhm.
and that is one of the changes that we've made since we
Okay.
reviewed the report last week. The registration system for hemp processors will be available at the end of this year, so that people who are registered currently with the Agency of Agriculture will have the opportunity to be registered and have no lapse in their registration. It does not mean that if you would like to process hemp, you must be registered by January 1st.
Okay, thanks.
Just that the process will be available by then.
Okay, thanks. And then the other was just, can you share with the things you were grouping together on hemp when you were talking about what might be intoxicating and not? What was the thought behind bringing the topicals in? I didn't quite understand. I get the ones that are ingested, but my personal experience and everybody I know have never had an effect from a topical. And I've actually worked in pharma on transdermal patches, so I think it's very unlikely that somebody's going to get intoxicated off the topicals we're putting out. So why were those included in there?
So there may have been a misunderstanding. The threshold level for intoxication and that we set forth in the hemp report was 1 milligram or more per serving.
Mhm.
And an exception to that will be full spectrum products that are distillates, capsules, tinctures, capsules, or topicals that have up to 1.5 milligrams THC per serving.
I understood, but even at 1.5 milligrams in a salve, that's the question. I think is just why the topicals, why the salves? I don't think you can get intoxicated by having a couple milligrams in a topical.
So this may be a scenario that we need to look into further, Keith.
Okay.
The report is really setting out like our initial kind of roadmap for where the board is thinking as they
Mhm.
develop the rule. The rule making for hemp has not begun yet. It probably won't begin until the end of January. And there will be quite a bit of opportunity for public feedback. And there's going to be a lot more sort of thinking about the details of the products that are going to be, allowed into the regular market versus the adult use market. So this may be a scenario where we do some more thinking and we change our thought.
Okay, thanks. That was it.
All right, I'm going to pause now and turn to the phones. If anyone who has joined via phone has a question, please hit *6 to unmute yourself. And again, if you've joined via Microsoft Teams, you can raise your virtual hand and we will call on you. Just give the phones one more moment to unmute. All right, the phone ending in 8828.
Hello, I just have a question about the sale of seeds. And so for growing plants that, a seed doesn't have any THC content in it yet, do those seeds need to come from a licensed cultivator? Like if a retailer buys seeds to sell in their store, those seeds need to be from a licensed retailer or manufacturer, or excuse me, I guess it would be cultivator. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Does that make sense?
It does. It does.
Let Mama's on a meeting. Of course, they come in right as I unmute.
Of course. Bobby, why don't you and I touch base offline here, because there's lots of nuances to that answer. We do know that some genetics are coming from out of state. We do know some are being produced here. If you're going to sell anything as a licensed cultivator or producer to the general public, whether that is seeds or clones, we want the retailer who's selling them to be licensed. And if they are clones,
Yeah.
we do want it to come from one of our cultivators. Seeds are a different scenario given the DEA's interpretation, but we can talk
So
offline.
Okay, well, for example, these seeds are local. They are mailed and shipped out from a Vermont producer, but that producer is not a licensed producer, but the retailer would be a licensed retailer purchasing these seeds. But
Sure,
there's a lot of confusion on, yeah.
Let's talk offline.
Sure. Sounds good. Should I just send you an email or?
Yep. No, we are aware that there's Vermont genetic producers who are currently not licensed. I think we would like to, one path forward would be for the legislature to give us authority for a nursery license. We currently don't have a nursery license, but we have a way for our cultivators, our licensed cultivators, to produce genetics. A nursery license would solve this issue. We currently don't have the authority to create one.
All right, because I'm just hesitant to put seeds out on the shelf if there's going to be any question about it.
No, there would be hold off on that just yet.
Okay. Yep, I have been. I took this opportunity to ask. Okay. Perfect. Thank you so much, you guys, for being here.
Bobby is next.
Hey folks, thanks for doing this. Was just hoping you could clarify if a manufacturer is producing products for another licensee, which of the two is in charge of registering that product?
Sure, I can take that one. It would depend on the type of product and also whose label is on it. So how it's reaching the consumer at the point of retail. So there's that arm
So say a
who registers.
manufacturer, sorry to interrupt,
No,
I'll
go
just
ahead.
clarify right now.
Yeah.
Say a manufacturer is making it for a cultivator and has the cultivator's branding on it.
And the manufacturer is making the product.
Yes.
And has the cultivator's license on it.
Yes.
I would say it's a business decision which licensee would register the product. In our new live product registration portal that's connected to your licensing portal, you can also indicate if it's white labeled. So for example, as the manufacturer, you white label with the cultivator's brand. That way it's not looking like a cultivator is manufacturing a product, right?
Yep, exactly.
So that's a way to kind of track and keep those connections straight.
So the manufacturer would submit it and they'd select that option. Awesome. Thank you.
Cool.
Jody.
Yes, hello everybody. Happy holidays. My question may be a bit premature, but I was wondering, when do we have to start thinking about reapplying for our license? How many months in advance? Is it 1 or 2, 3? Thank you.
Yep, I can take that one too from the licensing team. You will start to get email notifications from the licensing portal 120 days prior to your expiration date. And then again at 90 days, 60 days, and 30 days, right? Our gentle nudge to you all to get your documents in, your renewal submission in. And that renewal period will end 30 days prior to your expiration date to give us time to process it in hopes that it's a seamless licensing transition. That answer your question? I didn't hear a response, so I hope it did.
Yes, thank you. I was on mute. I appreciate that.
Anna.
Good evening. Thank you so much for putting another Q&A together. I have a question about seeds. Are they subject to the cannabis excise tax? And then when it comes to reporting seed sales, as a retailer, I've typically been reporting everything as grams or milligrams for any kind of concentrates or topicals or anything of that sort. But how are seeds to be reported? And my point of sale, like for example, I have a pack of 12 seeds and my point of sale wants to say that it's 12 grams of cannabis. So I'm not clear on that. Thanks.
And we're going to have to get back to you. We only have one product registration for seeds right now, and the same question in the product, in the inventory tracking, one packet of seeds would be one product. You don't need to report that as grams of cannabis. But we're going to have to I guess put it on a guidance document very shortly for seeds before we get to the spring season. Sounds like.
Okay, thanks. And you heard the excise tax question, right?
I did.
Okay.
I did. And that's the one, that I'm really going to have to dig into the tax law and check. That's not a part of the industry that we regulate. We do partner with tax on some stuff, but I'm going to have to read their law and let you know about seeds. You're the first one to ask.
Anna, I can say that I think the answer is going to be yes, but I would like to also do some checking with the tax department. But my understanding is that it's going to be yes.
Okay, we are erring on the side of yes, but technically there's no cannabis and seeds. I mean, I could be not saying it correctly, but yes, and then they've been classified federally. So all right, thank you.
I'm taking that guess based on the definition in the statute, but there may be more to come on that one. So thanks for giving us the heads up.
Sam.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, it's Sam at Sunset Lake. Just a follow-up from Jody's question. I think this would be for Lauren. For the re-registration process, is there an option to proactively re-register more than 100 days in advance? I'm just thinking as an outdoor cultivator, that 90 day, I would just want to get that figured out with the tiers and everything, prior to the planting season. So just with our expiration date, I believe it's in September. I don't know, could I proactively do this like in the early spring? Thank you.
Yeah. We're actually trying to solve this question in real time because it's come up with some other licensees. And I think we're pursuing you'll have your existing expiration date and have the new submission, but we'll modify the start date of the new submission so you can have all your information in, and then we end one and then have the new one start, even though you've had like an early submission, if you will. We still have to work out a few glitches and see how that works in our portal production, but that's sort of how we're coming at that exact question.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Robert.
Hi, good evening. Can you hear me? Good. Just wanted to, couple questions. Are there any limitations, or what limitations are there on who can provide ancillary services to a cultivator, like trimming, like bagging, things of that nature? I'm gonna ask questions one at a time because they kind of flow after each other.
So anyone, it depends on the structure. If you're going to have a business that provides support to the cannabis industry, such as a mobile trim operation, then the individuals providing that support need to carry their own card. If they're an employee of a licensee, the licensee may hold their card. So it really depends on who has that employee's card, whether it's an individual or attached to a business. But anybody with a cannabis card can work at any one of the licensees, provided they're properly trained.
So so implicit in that is you need to be licensed to provide services to any other licensee.
Essentially, yes. Yep.
And then in terms of cannabis moving back and forth between licensees, are there any restrictions there? Like for those provisions of services?
If you're moving product, yes, it's sort of a one-way street. And your license dictates what products you have. Wholesalers and retailers can have any of the products. Manufacturers, if you're white labeling a product for a cultivator, the manufacturer should also distribute that product to retail instead of shipping it back to a cultivator. Is that what you were asking, or was it something else?
No, that's kind of an example of it. So
Yeah.
if it was just trimming, and it went from a licensee to a licensee, to cultivators, it shouldn't go back to the original licensee. Is that what you're saying? Or not?
As what? As what? If you're making pre-rolls, are you asking if one cultivator can make pre-rolls for another cultivator and
I
give
guess
them back?
right. That would be an example, or just bulk flower. Maybe somebody has, a better expertise, or they have more manpower available to do trimming than another cultivator.
If a cultivator wants to hire somebody who has a card from the CCB to be an employee, thanks, Bryn.
So I would recommend that you read Rule 2.2.7, and that talks about transportation of cannabis between licensees. You have to be a licensee to transport. So you have to have a cannabis establishment ID card issued to you pursuant to your license in order to transport product. So for example, a mobile trimming unit who comes to help you trim, they would not be able to transport product to a manufacturer from a cultivation license.
Right. No, I understand the transport issues are very clear, and I understand. Okay. But if you're cultivator A and you bring over, let's just call it 10 pounds of, or say you bring over 50 pounds of kind of bucked material that has not been trimmed down to cultivator B trims it down, makes it all nice, gives you nice bulk flower that's ready to be sold to retailers, and then gives it back to cultivator A, and cultivator A is doing the transport both ways, and they've got a card to do that. Is that okay, or am I missing something?
So that sounds okay to me, unless I'm missing something.
Okay. Nope. I hear you.
Yeah, that sounds okay to me. You're subcontracting.
Yep.
You're subcontracting another cultivator to do some work. Somebody who already has an employee card from us.
So the key is keeping all the people in the loop, making sure they're all either they're all licensed or they're employees of licensees.
Yes. Yep.
Thank you.
And I would even go as far as to say that the cultivator who brings that 50 pounds of flower to the other cultivator, that doesn't ever go into the one doing the trimmings inventory tracking. It would stay in possession of cultivator A, if you will.
Thank you. No, I appreciate that distinction.
All right, I'm going to turn to the phones again. We've had a couple other phone numbers join us. So if you have joined via phone and have a question, you can hit *6 to unmute. The phone number ending in 3277, you've unmuted.
Hi, my name is Sarah. Is this just like a Q&A for consumers, or is it just for business owners or licensees?
I would suggest that you go ahead and ask your question. We'll do our best.
What's that?
Go ahead and ask your question. We'll do our best.
I'm just wondering if I could possibly get like a brief update on the status of the 60% cap on concentrates. Something that I'm really looking for in my medicine is the, like live rosin and solventless options. And I'm just wondering if I'm just wondering what the updated status is on that process of maybe getting rid of the cap. Thank you.
Yep, I can answer that. So if you are a medical patient in Vermont, you can have access. There is no prohibition on products that have 60% or greater THC concentration in medical products. It's only in the adult use market that prohibition exists. And it is still in statute that products that have 60% or greater THC concentration are prohibited in the adult use market. The Cannabis Control Board recently drafted a report to the legislature on solid concentrate products. You can see it on our website. The final version will be up on the website on the last day of the year. In that report, we are recommending to the legislature that they lift that 60% cap so that concentrated products can be available on the adult use market. So please feel free to go and check out that report if you were not at the board meeting where we reviewed it.
Thank you very much.
I would add to Bryn's comment that it's probably worth you talking to your representatives, your local representatives, because this is in their hands.
Okay.
DM has their hand raised.
Hi, I'd like to talk again about the ancillary services in the trimming business. You said a mobile trimming business.
I did. We don't have any. I'm just envisioning them. It's theoretical at this point.
Okay, so theoretically, I have a truck, I have a trailer, I have a trimming machine. I'm not growing product. I'm not selling product. I'm going to point A to trim this guy's crop. He's got an acre of cannabis that needs to be trimmed out. I don't need a permit for that, do I? Just a business license. I don't need a cannabis permit because I'm not transporting, I'm not growing, I'm not doing anything with it except trimming it.
You need all your employees to have employee cards. And
okay.
Yep.
And employee cards are connected to a licensed establishment because you're touching cannabis.
We're touching cannabis, but it's just going through a machine. We're not keeping it. We're not doing anything with it except giving it back to the person that owns it. We're not even packaging it. A cannabis employee card I can understand, but to be licensed or why be affiliated with anybody else? This is my business.
I'd say they're great theoretical questions when we get to that point.
But I already, we're already there. We got crops that need to be trimmed. I'm ready to go to work. Hello.
Yep.
How do we get the answer, Gary?
Yep. Why don't you give me a call and describe your business model, and we'll walk you through what's legal in that arena.
Okay, sounds good. We'll be in touch.
Yep.
Thank you.
There's certain things that would be, but if you go much further, you're a manufacturer. So I just want to have the conversation about what it is, what your ideas are.
Okay, no problem. Thank you.
Josh.
Hi there. Hey, thanks for taking the time to answer our questions this evening. So it brought to my attention that the CCB is now going to be moving to once-a-month meetings, which has the next essentially being at the end of January, roughly 5 weeks from now. As a manufacturer awaiting licensure, we just have the final walkthrough left. The inspection is the last part of our process. And unfortunately, a delay in receiving our license until the end of the month will negatively affect an operation like ours, one that is essentially bootstrapping our way through the process of trying to start a viable business. So my question is if the CCB would consider possibly holding weekly meetings, or at the very least, one other meeting, possibly mid-January, before going to the once-a-month schedule. I can't imagine that we're the only applicants that could possibly be harmed or negatively affected by such a delay. Thank you.
Thanks for your question. I'm happy to answer that. So the board did give several, I think more than a month, maybe 2 months notice that they would be moving to a monthly meeting schedule in the new year. And we recognize that it is going to be a difficult transition for folks because we have been meeting weekly ever since I think the outset of the board. We've been meeting weekly, so it is a big transition to switch to monthly meetings. This transition is going to give our staff a little bit of breathing room so that we are able to not only get folks licensed, but do all of the other things that we are doing as a regulatory agency. So I understand that you're asking for the board to call a special meeting to approve your license, and I don't think that's going to happen, and I'm sorry. I know that there are others who want the board to hold a special meeting so that they can get their licenses approved, but we did give more than 2 months notice that we were transitioning to a monthly board meeting, and that's what we're going to do.
Okay, well, I do appreciate the answer and certainly understand what must be a massive workload that you all are fielding. But yeah, just to reiterate, I'm sure we're not the only ones feeling the pinch from this, and certainly a lot of these delays, I think we could all agree, are kind of outside of our hands. But I do appreciate the time, appreciate the answer, and hopefully we can find some kind of compromise solution. But thank you for your time.
Philip.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay. All right. So I recently went through the inventory tracking page, and I'm worried that I submitted information wrong because I couldn't understand the questions. Like a lot of the questions, like I felt could be interpreted in a bunch of different ways. I have the page opened up, so I wanted to kind of go through a few things that I was a little confused about, and like wondering maybe if I, having already submitted it, what issues might occur because of that. And so, for example, the first one, which I think I got right, says for the first process lot, indicate the date. Oh, well, actually, the planting was an easy part, but like, what is it? The first process, yeah, the harvest date. Okay, never mind. First process, nice and harvest, final weight, final. Wait, it looks like they changed the application now. Wait, that's weird. Oh, here we go. No. This is what I'm confused about. Please provide the start date of this 2-week reporting period. And then there's the like the start date of like the planting and then the harvesting. So I actually I was confused. So like I put the harvest date for the start date of the 2-week reporting period. And then I just put the 2 weeks after for the end date because it's a 2-week
Yep.
period. So
No, even our when we launched the new system, and even now, we're having our licensees interact with the system every 2 weeks. I can, if you send me your license number, and that's all I need, license number and the date that you reported that you believe is wrong, I can fix that field individually. If that works for you, or I can delete the whole
I
record.
don't know what that means. I may or may not have put it wrong because I don't
Okay.
know what the start date of this 2-week reporting period means. Like at first I thought like, you mean the start date of like when I like harvested or something. Like I don't know. Like that's what I
No.
thought.
So next
Like, I
year,
was
this is
thinking it was like a processing period or something like that.
Yeah.
Or like what date would you have wanted me to put there?
The when we go live with our Salesforce solution, our licensees will interact with the inventory tracking a minimum of every 2 weeks, and it's sort of like a pay period, if you will. So if you have a job, you report your time every 2 weeks, and when that 2 weeks is up, that paycheck is locked and you get paid. So we're going to block the entire year into 2-week reporting periods. Since you've done it, you've just entered all the data right now. Whatever 2-week period you've put in, I can work with. But come next growing season, you'll be asked to interact with that system every 2 weeks, and there'll be email notifications to let you know if you have or not.
Okay. Well, in that regards, if so, I'm an outdoor cultivator, to be clear. So in the middle of the season or the beginning of the season, I mean, would I just kind of like, have the harvest numbers, just be 0, I guess, like for that time period, and just input whatever is relevant to that time, obviously, regardless of the fact that, because I thought, okay.
But if
That's
you're a
interesting.
small cultivator and you've planted 125 plants, and in the first week 10 of your clones died, you would go in and say, I've got 115 plants, and then a month later during the 2-week reporting period, you found a couple of those have either hermit or they're males if you're growing from seed, and then you would pull 2 more plants, so your plant number for that harvest lot would go down by 2 plants for that 2-week reporting period. There's also the option to record your pesticide use or your or your biostimulants and other inputs for a 2-week period will also be an option for you to add that data there as well.
Okay, I understand now.
Yep. And
That-
so
that
if nothing
clarifies
has
a lot.
changed, when the new system is live, when you log in, they'll just be, all your information will be there, and you can just check a box that says nothing has changed. I have nothing to report in this 2-week reporting period. It's the exact same as the prior 2 weeks.
Okay.
And then you'll close out. You're done reporting for that period.
Okay. I think I just have one more question, which is, also on the application where it asks for, or the inventory tracking where it asks for the first process lot, specify the final weight of fresh or fresh frozen cannabis in grams. So, you mean like when I first harvest it and I weigh it while it's still alive, basically, like, is that what you mean? Or like regardless
No.
of whether I use it for concentrate, or is that more for the stuff that I would maybe set aside if I was making like a fresh frozen concentrate of some kind or hash?
Correct. There were licensees cultivators who sold their entire crop. They chopped it down, froze the whole plant, or bucked it in the field, and sold that biomass, frozen biomass. So if you didn't do that, then you don't answer that question.
Well, so yeah, so I did answer that question, and I answered it because I was told that I had to weigh my plants before they were dried and after they were dried. So I put in the weight of like before they were dried and bucked and any of that stuff. I just put the whole plant weight basically, and recorded that because I hung them dry like
That's very good.
almost completely. I didn't
Philip,
buck them ahead of
thank you.
time.
Thank you for the data. Thank you for the data, and it really helps us. The more data you give us, the better picture we have of our market, and I can use that data just as you've reported it.
Okay.
But that said,
that's okay. You won't misinterpret that as like my fear is that it might be misinterpreted as like, oh, that's on top of like my dry weight or something like that. You know what I mean? Like,
Yep. If I did, our first inquiry would be to you and ask you to clarify the data.
Okay. So if there's an
but
issue,
this gives me,
would I just get a request for clarification?
You'd get a request for clarification. What that does is allows me to sort of get an average from wet weight of plants to pounds of dry product produced. That's a good number for us to have.
Okay. All right, good. Well then I'll keep doing that then. Well that's good. Great. I think that's it. I appreciate the input. I'm glad I got clarification. So
Okay.
Yeah, and we did have cultivators that, like I said, were only are selling fresh frozen, so we did need that in there. But I understand what you did.
Awesome. All right, thank you. Have a good day.
You too.
All right, Philip is going to be our last questioner tonight. It is 7:04, and so I'm going to call our question and answer session to a close so that CCB staff can get back to their families. I know that I think there are other folks with their hand raised, and you can please just send us an email at ccb.info@vermont.gov, and we will get back to you. We will be holding another Q&A session sometime in January. The date hasn't been selected yet. That one will be specific to advertising. We're trying to make these Q&A sessions limited in their scope so that they can be helpful for folks and we can really dive into some of the areas that people need clarification on. So looking forward to seeing many of you in about a month. And thanks everybody for joining. Have a good night.
Thanks. Good night.
Good night. Thank you.